Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I am recapping episode 11 of I May Destroy You. Trigger warning, this show and this recap have conversations surrounding sexual assault and rape. So if those are topics that you're sensitive to, now is a good time to dip out. I won't take offense to it. Let's just jump right in. This show is so heavy. I feel like every time I open the show up, I'm like, oh y'all, this one took me out. They all take me out. I walked away from this episode with a number of questions about a few things. Kwame is proof that we only know how to accept the kind of love that we think we deserve. Kwame is, pursuing this relationship with the guy, I want to say his name was Tyrone, and he's questioning whether or not he's good enough to be in a relationship with someone who he deems to be so good. And we later find out that that is because he's still suffering from guilt over this one night stand that he had with this white woman where he violated some of her boundaries in an effort to explore his own sexuality after being sexually assaulted. So there are so many layers there. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't ever want to come off as a rape apologist. I also have a really hard time defending white women, especially right now. So that whole situation, that whole interaction where he wanted to talk to her, to apologize and to explain and, to take ownership of what he did, she wasn't here for it. And I'm not saying that she had to be. I do think that it's important that people know that just because you apologize for something, it doesn't take away the hurt or the impact or the effects of what you did. And people also don't have to accept your apology. You might be wholeheartedly sorry upon realizing, wow, I did violate your boundaries and maybe I should have. And I think even some of the distancing words that he used of like maybe and I think or whatever, but I don't think he could have said anything that was going to make her be okay with the fact that she unknowingly slept with a man who is gay. And I think that because he still feels so guilty for that, maybe that's a part of why he doesn't feel worthy of being with this guy who's treating him with a level of just niceness, actually. And I found it really interesting too. Ben continues to be a voice of reason, maybe, in this show. I need to do some reading because I want to know like what exactly his character's purpose is. He seems to be like the moral compass, because he tells Kwame, well, you are nice, and if you don't feel that you are, do what you need to do to become the person you want to become. And it actually reminds me of a book that I have been admonishing people to read for a while. It's called Attached. And in Attached, it talks about these different attachment styles that we all have in our interpersonal romantic relationships. And you have people who are secure, and these are people who kind of move through life a little bit easier. They have confidence in themselves. They don't obsess over romantic relationships. And, they are open. They're emotionally available. And what this, research in psychology has found is that secure people can actually elevate people who are avoidant or insecure. I think Kwame is an avoidant person. He doesn't really like to be tied down. He's, weary of commitment and things like that. And it just goes to show, this situation goes to show that insecure and or avoidant people seek each other out and bring each other down. And if you could actually find some sense of comfort and safety in being with a person who is secure, you can elevate yourself to being a secure person. So I'm very curious whether or not Kwame is going to reveal to Tyrone that like I did a bad thing. Because, maybe he doesn't want him to see him in that light. So I'm very curious to see if he's going to reveal that to him. And I'm also curious about whether or not this white woman is going to expose Kwame because she said that he was canceled and then sent him the text message calling him a fucking pig. I'm really curious to see if she's going to put him on blast and like dox him or whatever, which remains to be seen. So I think that this is giving us the opportunity to see on the other side of things, like what it's like to be a person who violated someone's boundaries, who didn't give them full consent, and the knowledge that you shouldn't be using women's bodies as experiments to work out your own trauma. I am curious to see, though, because we've gotten kind of a full story of seeing where Kwame was coming from, and in a way you want to kind of understand, but also he should have disclosed this thing. We get to see the other side of what it's like for a person to not intend to do bad, to not intend to cause harm, but to do it anyway. So I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. I can't say how I want it to, especially because she made the comments of like, abusers and rapists always go unpunished and things like that. So I'm wondering what's going to come of, her having those feelings, which are justified, to be honest, even though, I have been saying Kwame is my, favorite character for a while now. I'm beginning to wonder, like, does it make me a rape apologist? To still feel for him. I have questions. It's once we know someone has violated someone in that way or didn't allow a person to make fully knowledgeable consent, do we have to cancel that person? In this specific, situation where we saw where he was coming from and what that was about. So that was one question that I walked away with is, do we give people like that any leeway? I'm just still working through that in my mind, because again, we have to believe victims and we have to prioritize them. And I think that becomes a little bit more complicated when that person is also a victim. So Arabella still has wicked writer's block. As a writer, I can tell you one way to shake writer's block is to stop writing and to read something else. So she starts reading this book called Sundial by this author named Della, and she falls in love with this book. She feels like if I can just talk to this person, maybe it will help me to get out of my rut to actually finish my draft, because she has not gotten very far with it. Her literary agents are on her back about it. Susie Henney is on her back about it. And even I am starting to be like, girl, you gonna finish this book or not? Even though she suffered 2 very significant traumas, I'm still really worried about, like, how are you gonna take care of yourself if you don't get this book written? So, she gets this bright idea to reach out to this person by recording a video of herself, like, on the toilet. And I'm like, Ben, step in, honey. Tell her this isn't okay. Saying, woman to woman, as a Black woman, and blah, 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 blah. I would love to meet you. I would love to talk about this. And once again, it's like, girl, boundaries. You can't keep overstepping boundaries just because you need to feel good. That's how so much of this stuff comes into fruition, is someone is violating someone else's boundaries in order to make themselves feel good. Don't be one of those people. And so, we saw her do this with the ex-boyfriend popping up at his house, locking Kwame in the room. And now you think that it's appropriate to send a stranger a video of you on the toilet with their book. It's weird. This also brings up a really important point that I just want to make, like, as a fellow creative, as a writer, as a YouTuber, as a podcaster. It's important to, as Issa Rae says, network horizontally and not vertically. I know there is really no roadmap when it comes to careers in the creative field, and we want so badly for someone to advise us, to tell us the pitfalls, to mentor us, to whatever. When you come off too strong to people who are in a different space than you, maybe elevated in a different level of success than you are, it comes off as weird sometimes, and sometimes it comes off with an air of desperation, because you're coming to that person asking them to do something for you, and what's the payoff for them? Especially when they don't know you. So this is an ongoing conversation that a bunch of influencers have been having, where, there has to be a proper way to reach out to people to seek help, but you also want those people to approach you with a level of grace. So just as an aside, like, something to consider, look to the people who are more on your level. success-wise for advice, or to partner up with or to network with, because there's probably more alignment there as opposed to a person who has advanced in their career a bit ahead of you. And then this person, Della, blocks her. So she goes to Henny House to see Susie, which I hate that woman. I think that she is a terrible, terrible person. I hate the way she makes Arabella feel. I hate that Arabella went there seeking any level of comfort. You're not going to find that with her. She don't care about you, girl. And as a result, I'm going to say, I think as a result of her going to Susie Henny, she gets completely dropped by the publishers and by her literary agents. And yeah, Arabella is going through it. And she also has to pay back the advance that they gave her to write this book that she never finished. So Arabella is going through it in a number of ways, and financial trouble, it's next level. It haunts you, it looms over you, especially when you don't know where your next check is coming from. So my heart went out to her for this part as well. So she's at lunch with T, who has actually gotten approved for a job. Go T, I guess. I still don't really see it for her. And she gets an email back from Della, and Della wants to meet, and this gives her the slightest bit of hope. Well, turns out that Della is a pseudonym for Zane, the man who sexually assaulted her. And I was floored. And this is another question that I had. How do you accept help from a person who violated you? And then I was also really pissed at the fact that him having this pseudonym was also Susie Hennessy's idea. And that's why, upon Arabella asking, like, can I meet this person? She's like, no, you can't. And I wonder if that's a part of the reason why she dropped her, because maybe she felt like she was getting too close to the knowledge that this was Zane. And it's also such a shitty thing that Zane actually raped several women or sexually assaulted several women, but was still able to create a book under a different name. Arabella was actually raped, and because of the trauma that she endured, has been struggling to finish her book, and she gets fired. Make that make sense. So I think, Zane wanting to assuage his guilt over the way in which he violated Arabella, creates this ruse to meet with her, because he's like, you still need help with your book, and I never did that for you, so I would like to help you. And I can, again, as a writer, it does help for someone to provide some manner of structure for you for a story. So he does provide that help for her, and she does, confront him and say, I'm not afraid of you. And, some of the darkness that you exposed me to is now in me. And I thought that speech was really powerful, because I think for some people who endure sexual assault or rape, confronting your rapist, I think it must be like a very cathartic thing, honestly. And even when she asked him to come back to her place, I think that she felt like, this isn't a violent person. I do need this help. And again, that's another question that I have. I don't know about the mental state of someone doing that, but I do understand why she did it. And he comes back to her place and helps her to really organize her thoughts. And I think that what I walked away from with that situation was that confrontation can bring clarity. From that, she was able to get in her flow in terms of writing and putting the story together. And it gave her, it looks like, a sense of relief and kind of re-energized her. So I was confused about how it came about, but I was happy that it came about, because writing is really, really hard when you aren't in your flow and when you are blocked because you can be creatively blocked, and that creative block can be coming from something else that's really hard to confront. And I think that from that confrontation came the clarity that she needed to push forward. I don't know how she gonna write this book. I don't know how she's gonna get it picked up. I hope it happens somehow. But let's park right here and go back to T, who has been choosing on this waiter at the scene of Arabella's crime, where she has just been hanging out, hoping something will, spark a memory, push pin in that. And T and this waiter go on a date, and as soon as they sit down, this person comes up to the table and just says, thank you for, what you do. And T is like, oh, well, who are you? Like, I'm an actress, blah, blah. T is just such a douche. And, they're like, oh, I want to learn more about you. So of course T goes to like Google them and finds out that she's actually on a date with a trans man. And he can sense her discomfort and, asks if she wants to leave. He, discloses, he's like, here are some things about me. I also happen to be trans. And, asks if she wants to leave. She doesn't want to come off as transphobic, so she sticks around and feels the need to prove that she isn't a prude like they said that she was. And she tells him this story about her threesome, where she comes to terms with what we all knew, and what she on some level knew, is that she was set up by these two men. They plotted on her to have this threesome with her. She wasn't fully in control of having this adventurous time in Italy. This was a plan that there's no telling how many women these guys did this to. And you can tell that it did, affect her to an extent. And I am curious to see where this relationship is going to go. They get back to the restaurant, and, Arabella asks, like, are you guys an item? And she's like, yeah, we're going steady. We'll see what happens. But Arabella can tell that she's a bit shaken. So here we get to the climax of, I feel this is the climax of the show, at least thus far. Arabella sees a black man and is completely reminded of her assault and everything that happened. A few things. Number one, it's not lost on me that her rapist was a white man, but her rape was facilitated by a black man. He not only helped to get her into this cab, but he also was a lookout in the restroom. So you knew that this wasn't right, and you helped this white man to rape a black woman. That angered and devastated me. And the fact that they still come to this bar, they still come to this restaurant, even after what they did to her, means that they don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you get away with something, you think that you'd lay low, but no, they're out here living their regular ass life. And upon this realization, the show goes off. So it's a major cliffhanger. I air it out, burn the whole thing down, kill it with fire. So that's it for this penultimate episode of I May Destroy You. I have questions, high hopes. I think there was a bit of resolution on the Zane front. I hope that Arabella finds a way to get this book published. I hope that she finds a way to get some justice after having this recollection of what happened to her. So I'm curious to see what the last episode is going to be like. So I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to drop down in the comments and let me know what you guys thought about this episode. I really appreciate you guys talking to me about sharing your thoughts and opinions and predictions. So make sure you drop down in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe and share, and become a patron of mine if you'd like, using the link to my Patreon in the episode description. It's just a way to support independent creatives so that we can continue creating things and not be poor or homeless. So thank you guys. Talk soon. Bye.